In the first installment, we explored how Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, by suppressing local control over cell tower placements, may have inadvertently contributed to a low-fidelity developmental environment, eroding essential human traits like empathy and attention. We linked this subtle environmental factor, microwave radiation, or EMFs, to the rise in autism, ADHD, gender dysphoria, and even the extreme moral failures seen in school shootings. Now, let's delve deeper into the science. This isn't about speculation. It's about the mounting evidence from reputable studies and research teams that calls into question our outdated assumptions about EMF safety. Armed with this understanding, we can better grasp why reforming Section 704 is not just a legal or moral issue, but a scientifically justified imperative. Non-thermal effects beyond heating tissues. Traditional safety guidelines have long focused on thermal effects. If EMF exposure doesn't heat tissues, it was assumed safe. Modern research shows this view is dangerously incomplete. Dr. Martin Paul's work is seminal in this area. He demonstrated that EMFs can activate voltage-gated calcium channels, or VGCCs, in cell membranes, allowing excess calcium to flood into cells. This calcium overload disrupts normal cellular signaling, increases oxidative stress, and damages DNA. Critically, these disruptions occur at levels far below those causing any detectable heating. Studies show EMFs generate reactive oxygen species, or ROS, leading to oxidative stress, cellular harm, and even DNA breaks. The U.S. National Toxicology Program and Ramazzini Institute studies have linked RF radiation to tumor formation in animal models, providing clear evidence that non-thermal exposure has biological consequences. If non-thermal EMF exposure can alter basic cellular functions, it can also influence the intricate processes guiding brain development, processes that shape traits like empathy, attention, and identity. Autism and ADHD research connecting EMFs to neurodevelopment. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, and ADHD have soared in prevalence. While genetic and diagnostic factors play roles, emerging science suggests EMFs may be exacerbating these trends. Research published in neuroscience journals shows that stable bioelectric gradients guide early brain development. EMF-induced oxidative stress and VGCC activation can disturb these gradients. If the instructions for building social cognition and attention networks are garbled, autism risk could rise. A groundbreaking study at Yale University exposed pregnant mice to levels of cell phone radiation comparable to human exposure. The offspring displayed ADHD-like symptoms, hyperactivity, anxiety, and attention deficits. This direct animal model experiment shows how EMFs can alter neural circuitry responsible for focus and impulse control. When we see ADHD and autism diagnoses climbing alongside the proliferation of wireless devices and towers, we have plausible biological mechanisms. EMFs may push susceptible individuals over the threshold, reducing fidelity in transmitting attention and social processing traits. Gender dysphoria and hormonal disruption. Gender dysphoria, or GD, reports are rising at an unprecedented pace, leading many to ask why. Social acceptance and recognition are positive factors, but hormonal imbalances induced by EMFs and blue light exposure may also play a subtle role. Research shows EMFs can interfere with endocrine signaling, affecting testosterone and estrogen levels. Testosterone, for instance, influences aspects of identity formation, confidence, and sexual development. Disruption here doesn't cause GD outright. Gender identity is complex, but if baseline hormonal pathways are distorted, it might increase the variance in how gender traits manifest. Blue light from screens adds another layer. Disrupted sleep and melatonin production affect overall hormonal balance. The combination of EMF exposure and blue light could create a low-fidelity developmental environment for identity-related traits, just as it does for attention or empathy. If EMFs and related stressors alter hormone pathways during critical developmental windows, they could subtly influence identity formation processes. Gender dysphoria, in this view, might partly reflect environmental noise interacting with normal variation, increasing the number of individuals who experience identity confusion. Empathy and moral cognition, the EDD hypothesis. Empathy deficit disorder, or EDD, isn't a formal diagnosis, but it encapsulates the idea that empathy, central to moral reasoning, can erode in adverse developmental environments. Neurotransmitter imbalances. EMFs can change levels of dopamine, serotonin, and glutamate, all crucial for mood, learning, and emotional regulation. If these chemical messengers don't function normally, the brain's empathy circuits can't develop correctly. Mirror neurons and social cues. Empathy relies on the brain's ability to mirror others' emotions. Disruptions in bioelectric signals and neurotransmitter systems could impair these mirror neuron networks. The result might be individuals less capable of understanding or caring about others' pain, a factor that, combined with other issues, could reduce the mental barriers to violence. Implication: just as EMFs can degrade attention or identity formation, they may also degrade empathy. Without empathy, moral reasoning falters, and in extreme cases, this could contribute to horrific acts like school shootings. Linking it all together, conditions rising in parallel. This isn't about EMFs causing one condition or another in isolation. The point is that autism, ADHD, gender dysphoria, and empathy erosion are all rising together in a world that's never been so saturated with EMFs. The science provides plausible biological pathways. EMFs disrupt cellular signaling, hormones, and neurotransmitters, fundamental building blocks of neurodevelopment. As these traits fail to pass with fidelity from one generation to the next, we see more neurodevelopmental disorders and identity confusion. In extreme outliers, where empathy is gravely compromised, unspeakable violence may emerge. Understanding that these conditions share underlying disruptions highlights a neglected environmental contributor. By focusing on wireless radiation, we begin to see a unifying factor. Section 704's role: why we can't take precautions. Why haven't we acted on this science? Because Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 prevents communities from using health concerns to limit cell tower placements. This legal blockade ensures no matter the evidence, parents and local governments cannot opt for safer infrastructures or demand proof of non-thermal safety. Our legal framework protects industry interests over children's neurological health. Until we restore local control, acknowledging the science won't translate into meaningful reforms. Without empowerment to act, we remain stuck in a dangerous status quo. A moral and scientific imperative for change. Revisiting Section 704 is not mere politics. It's a moral obligation grounded in evolving science. We must amend or repeal Section 704 to restore local rights to challenge cell towers on health grounds. We need to fund independent research. More mechanistic studies are needed to confirm the exact pathways by which EMFs influence empathy, attention, and identity. We should update guidelines. The FCC must consider non-thermal effects and adapt standards to modern science. Precautionary measures are essential. Limit children's EMF exposure, favor wired connections, and reduce nighttime screen use until we understand these risks better. Conclusion: the science demands action. This second part reveals the scientific backbone supporting the claims that EMFs may be contributing to a suite of modern crises, from autism and ADHD to gender dysphoria and empathy deficits. The research is there: non-thermal effects, VGCC activation, neurotransmitter imbalances, hormonal disruptions, all consistent with the rise of conditions previously rare or unknown. The evidence provides us a way forward. This isn't about alarmism. It's about responding responsibly to credible science. By reforming Section 704 and embracing the precautionary principle, we can realign public policy with scientific reality. If we fail, these troubling trends may only intensify, and the tragedies we mourn today may become an even more common feature of tomorrow's headlines. Visit RF Safe to learn more.